Success is not a chase. It is not a hunt, a sprint, a mad race into the unknown. You do not lunge at it, grasp for it, or demand it into your hands. No success is something you attract, not by effort alone, not by urgency or desperation, but by the person you become. It is magnetic, and you, whether you realize it or not, are a living magnet. Every day you are pulling things into your life not by accident, not by chance, but by vibration, by alignment, by the energy of your thoughts, the weight of your habits, the depth of your self-image. You don't get what you want. You get who you are. So if you want more, don't reach outward. Reach inward. Dig. Strip back the layers of distraction and vanity. Lay your soul bare. Ask yourself not, how do I get ahead? But what must I become to deserve what I seek? Because success does not respond to need. It responds to value. And your value rises when you do. Most people never understand this. They chase goals like shadows, clawing, grinding, hustling not, realizing the thing they're chasing is fleeing because it doesn't recognize them yet. They have not become the version of themselves who can hold what they seek. And so, even if it arrives, it slips through their fingers like smoke. But the wise do not run. They rise. They rise in the morning with purpose. They rise in challenge with power. They rise in failure with perspective. They rise not because it's easy, but because they know the only way to attract more is to become more. Your life will never outgrow your identity. And so it begins with the most sacred territory of all, the mind. Your mindset is not a tool. It is a temple. It is not what you visit when it's convenient. It's what you live in. Every belief you hold, every thought you repeat, every word you speak is shaping your future. You cannot attract abundance with a mind soaked in scarcity. You cannot attract strength with thoughts soaked in fear. You cannot attract greatness if you're still loyal to your limitations. So, clean house. Audit your inner world. Dismantle the mental architecture that keeps you trapped. Tear down the ceilings you've built with your doubts. Burn the blueprint of good enough. And begin again this time with vision. See yourself clearly, not through the eyes of your failures, not through the lens of your past, but through the eyes of possibility. Ask yourself, what would the highest version of me believe? And then begin believing it before the world gives you permission. Because belief is the seed of all attraction. You don't attract what's possible. You attract what you expect. The world mirrors your inner certainty. It reflects your self-image. It does not respond to begging, it responds to conviction. And conviction is born the moment you say, this is who I am now. This is what I do. This is what I stand for. Not, I'll try. Not, I hope. But I am. And when your identity is upgraded, your standards follow. You stop settling for half-hearted efforts. You stop tolerating circles that dim your flame. You stop explaining your hunger to people who've never tasted purpose. You don't just move differently. You vibrate differently. And everything around you begins to shift. Because clarity arrives like thunder, and when it does, it cuts through the fog. You're no longer confused. You're no longer distracted. You're no longer pulled by every shiny object on the horizon. You know who you are. You know where you're going. And everything else becomes noise. Clarity is the great filter. It makes decision-making easy. You stop chasing opportunities and start attracting alignment. You say yes to your mission and no 1,000 times no to anything that pulls you from it. Because when you are clear, you are dangerous. And when clarity meets vision, your life catches fire. Vision is not about fantasy. It's not about what looks good on paper. Vision is the soul's GPS. It's the divine whisper that says, you were made for more, not just to exist, not just to function, but to ignite. And when you listen, truly listen, you begin to see. You see the life you were born to live. You see the work you were born to do. You see the person you must become to walk that path. And that vision, it changes you. It makes comfort feel like a cage. It makes small talk taste like ash. It makes mediocrity intolerable. You stop asking, what's the least I can do to get by? And you start demanding, what's the most I can become before I die? And that question, that sacred question, sets fire to your purpose. Purpose is not what you find, it's what you choose. It's what you decide to make matter. Purpose is born the moment you say, this will not end with me. I will not go quietly into the ground. My life will mean something. Not for applause, not for legacy, but because you were given breathe and that breath must count. And when you live from purpose, you no longer need motivation. You become moved. You become possessed. You no longer need permission to act. You act because you are. And action, consistent, unrelenting action, becomes your prayer. Action is the bridge between identity and reality. You can think, you can dream, you can meditate and visualize, but if you don't move, nothing moves. Success is not attracted to thoughts alone. It is attracted to embodied truth, to the man who wakes up and honors his word, to the woman who shows up when no one's watching, to the soul who says, I will be the evidence of what's possible through discipline. Discipline is not a punishment. It is devotion. It is sacred repetition. It is the ritual of kings and queens who build empires not with noise, but with silent, consistent action. Discipline is remembering that you don't need to feel like it, you just need to become it. Because feelings are fleeting, but identity is forged in fire. And when you act from identity, results follow like shadows. Because you're no longer dabbling. You're no longer visiting greatness on the weekends. You live there now. And when you live there, when greatness is no longer a destination, but your address, something remarkable begins to unfold. Gratitude begins to flood your being, not as a forced ritual, but as a natural state of existence. You begin to feel rich before the riches arrive. You begin to walk in power before the recognition comes. You begin to honor the moment you're in, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. Gratitude becomes your default frequency, not because everything is easy, but because you've learned to see everything as useful. The delay teaches patience. The struggle teaches strength. The closed door teaches direction. You stop labeling things good or bad. You start asking, what is this trying to make of me? And when you live in that space, you stop resisting life and start partnering with it. You don't attract success by cursing the storm. You attract it by learning how to dance in the rain. You become adaptable. You stop needing life to bend to your plan. You learn to bend with life. You become water fluid, flexible, forceful when necessary, but never rigid. Because rigidity is the enemy of evolution, and evolution is the oxygen of success. Those who cannot adapt will be buried by change, but those who flow will rise with it. Adaptability isn't weakness. It's a quiet kind of wisdom. It's knowing who you are at your core and being willing to change everything else to serve that core. And when you adapt, when you adjust, when you keep moving forward despite the discomfort, something sacred is born. Resilience. Resilience is not just endurance. It is alchemy. It is the power to take pain and turn it into power, to take failure and forge wisdom, to take heartbreak and extract strength. Resilience is when the world throws dirt on you and you use it to grow roots. When people count you out, but you're still counting reps. When life knocks you down, but your soul whispers, get up. This is where champions are made. And you do. Not because it's easy, not because you want to, but because your identity no longer allows quitting to be an option. You've become the kind of person who doesn't need success to be visible because you've already made it inevitable. And that kind of resilience becomes rare. And what is rare becomes valuable. And what is valuable attracts. It attracts the people, the opportunities, the momentum. But it doesn't stop there. Because now you're learning not just growing, but compounding. You're learning at a higher level. Not just consuming information, but transforming with it. Learning is no longer a task, it's your weapon. You're no longer reading books to finish them. You're reading to become them. You're listening not to agree, but to expand. You're observing not to copy, but to understand. Because the learner always leads. And the one who stops learning stops earning. The world changes fast. But the one who learns faster always wins. Not because they're smarter, but because they are more committed to growth. And growth is the final law of attraction. You grow, life responds. You expand, life bends. You stretch, life yields. Because life is not happening to you. It's responding to you. It's echoing back your vibration, reflecting back your habits, mirroring back your identity. You don't chase success. You become someone it cannot ignore. You don't beg for abundance. You embody it until it finds its way home. And once you live from this truth, there is no going back. You stop playing small. You stop shrinking to protect others' comfort. You stop apologizing for the fire in your soul. You stop watering down your voice so the insecure can feel tall. You are no longer interested in fitting in. You are interested in becoming magnetic. Because success is not given, it is drawn. And you have become the magnet. So now, with the magnet forged, with your soul burning brighter than ever before, you stand at the edge of everything you've ever wanted, not with begging hands, but with open arms and unshakable identity. This is the moment where it all converges. The belief, the vision, the purpose, the discipline, the gratitude, the adaptability, the resilience, the learning, it all fuses into one force. You. Not the version of you that was handed to you by circumstance. Not the version of you shaped by wounds and whispers of self-doubt. Not the you that played small to fit a world that didn't know what to do with your power. But the real you. The version of you that has always been there waiting beneath the rubble of fear, of compromise, of hesitation. And now that version is here. You are the attraction. You are the vibration. You are the cause and. Success is the natural effect. There is no more striving, only becoming. You no longer hope to be noticed. You command attention through presence alone. You no longer hustle to be chosen. You choose yourself and make the world adjust. You no longer ask, will I make it? You know, I have already made it because I have become someone no failure can erase, no loss can define, no title can inflate, and no critic can break. You're no longer chasing results, you're living in alignment. And when you live in alignment, you attract what is meant for you effortlessly, magnetically, permanently. Because when you're clear, when you're focused, when you're disciplined from identity, the doors don't open because you knock. The doors open because you are the key. So this is your final call. Stop asking life for permission. Stop begging for breakthroughs. Stop wondering when it's your time. Your time is now. Your life does not respond to what you want. It responds to who you are. So become. Become the kind of person whose presence disrupts mediocrity. Become the kind of person who makes alignment look like abundance. Become the kind of person whose standards lift every room you walk into. Become the kind of person whose daily habits are a declaration of destiny. Become the kind of person who attracts success like gravity, not through noise, not through manipulation, but through unmistakable inner power. And when you down and you finally commit not to the goal, but to the growth, you will see success was never running from you. It was simply waiting for you to rise to meet it. And now you have. So don't chase, don't beg, don't force, just become. Because success is something you attract by the person you become. The most dangerous prison is not the one with bars. It's the one built inside your mind, crafted from silent assumptions, fortified with unquestioned beliefs, and guarded every day by the excuses you whisper to yourself when no one's listening. Your philosophy is not what you say. It's not what you post. It's not the quotes you memorize or the books you've highlighted. Your philosophy is what you believe when it's inconvenient. It's the lens you carry into every decision. It's the silent compass beneath your every move. It's the architect of your reality. And here's the truth most people never confront. You don't get what you want. You get what you believe. You don't attract what you wish for. You attract what you're aligned with. You attract what your philosophy permits. Because life responds to conviction, not confusion. And if your beliefs are blurry, your life will be too. That's why you can change the strategy, change the job, change the environment. But if you never change the philosophy, nothing changes for long. Because no matter how fast you run, if you're on the wrong map, you'll still be lost. Rohn said it best. Your personal philosophy is the major factor in how your life turns out. Not your talent, not your background, not your age, your timing, or your followers. Your philosophy. So the real question is not, what do I need to do? The real question is, what do I need to believe differently, to build differently? Because what you believe is building your life. Your habits didn't just appear. They were born from your beliefs. Your discipline or your distractions, they're all just reflections of your internal system. So if your life feels off track, don't start with your routine. Start with your root system. Start with what you've accepted as truth. Start with what you've allowed to live in your mind without ever asking, is this serving me or is it silently sabotaging me? Because most people aren't lazy. They're lost in a philosophy that told them to stay small. They're following a map someone else handed them. A philosophy of scarcity, of survival, of settling. They inherited it from people who never tasted freedom, who taught them to fear risk, to fear failure, to fear being different. And they accepted it because they never knew they had a choice. But you know now. You know that nothing changes until your beliefs change. You know that your actions are the echo of your inner code. You know that every external result is a mirror reflecting the unseen architecture you carry inside you. And now you can choose. You can rebuild your belief system from the ground up. You can replace doubt with discipline, scarcity with strategy, hesitation with identity. Because belief is not passive. Belief is the most powerful builder on this planet. It builds nations. It builds legacies. It builds futures. And if you don't choose your beliefs, someone else will. Your culture, your past, your trauma, your fear. But when you choose your philosophy, when you sit down with your life and say, this no longer belongs in my belief system, you reclaim your power. Because power doesn't come from effort alone. Power comes from alignment. And when your philosophy is aligned with truth, with growth, with purpose, your entire life begins to shift. Not slowly, instantly, because action follows belief. Energy follows belief. Results follow belief. So what do you believe right now that's keeping you broke? What do you believe that's keeping you average? What do you believe that's keeping you silent when your purpose is screaming to be heard? The wrong belief, left unchallenged, will cost you everything. But the right belief, planted, watered, and repeated, will rebuild your life from the inside out. That's the power of philosophy. It's the software behind your results. It's the script running in the background. It's the voice that either moves you forward or keeps you exactly where you are. And if you want new outcomes, you need a new operating system, not a new job, not a new plan, a new philosophy. Because philosophy is the foundation. And mindset is the first brick you lay. Not the surface kind, the real kind. The kind forged when no one claps. When it's cold outside, When your goals are invisible and your wins are quiet, that's where mindset lives. In the private conversations you have with yourself when pressure hits, when fear knocks, when things fall apart, and the old beliefs come whispering back saying, "See, I told you, stay small, stay safe." But now you don't listen because your new philosophy speaks louder. It reminds you that your current results are not a reflection of your capacity. They're a reflection of your clarity. And clarity is not found in noise. Clarity is found in courage. The courage to sit in silence, to confront your own chaos, to ask, what do I actually want? Not what looks good, not what impresses others, not what buys you a few likes or a few more digits. What matters to you? Because the moment you get clear on what matters, you stop majoring in what doesn't. You stop waking up just to be busy. You stop chasing validation. You stop spending your life on things that don't move the needle. You get focused. And that focus pulls vision into view. Not a fantasia future. One you build. One you become. And when your vision is born from a new philosophy, it stops being optional. It becomes inevitable. You don't chase it. It calls you. It speaks through your pain. It shows up in your reflection. It shows up when you say no to distractions. It shows up in the quiet commitment to stay aligned when no one's looking. And that alignment, that's purpose. Purpose is not something you find. It's something you uncover beneath the noise, beneath the expectations, beneath the fear. It's what remains when everything superficial gets stripped away. Purpose is what you fight for when pleasure doesn't work anymore, when the parties don't satisfy, when the applause fades, when the money doesn't fill the void. Purpose says, there is more to you than what you've allowed yourself to live. And when you remember that, when you feel that, you stop asking life for permission. You command it, not because you're arrogant, but because you're awake. You finally realize your time here is short and your impact is optional. But now you choose it. And purpose births discipline, not the discipline that feels forced, the discipline that feels like freedom, the kind that says, I don't have to do this, I get to. I get to rise early. I get to build. I get to lead. I get to protect my mind like it's sacred ground because it is. Discipline is no longer a punishment. It's a privilege because every disciplined act is a vote for your highest self. It's proof that you meant what you said in private. It's how you embody your new philosophy, not in theory, but in rhythm. And that rhythm, that's how you win. Not by force, not by drama, by showing up again and again and again. Discipline not because you're obsessed with the goal, but because you've fallen in love with the identity that lives on the other side of it. Because identity isn't found in thought. It's carved in motion. It's built in the quiet doing. You don't become confident by thinking about confidence. You become confident by proving to yourself that you keep your word, by showing up on the days when the emotion is gone and only the mission remains. That's why action is sacred. Not any action-aligned action. Action that's born from clarity, from philosophy, from purpose. You stop moving out of guilt. You stop moving out of pressure. You move because it's who you are now. And when action becomes identity, you don't need motivation anymore. You have momentum. You don't hesitate. You honor the impulse because hesitation is the gap where old beliefs try to sneak back in. But now your new beliefs are louder. Now you've taught your body to respond differently. Now you act because delay is no longer acceptable. And the more you move, the more you adapt. Because the world doesn't stay still and neither do you. You stop fearing change. You become change. You shift. You reframe. You evolve. You let go of being right and chase what's real. Because adaptability is power in motion. It's not about being perfect. It's about staying in the fight when the plan breaks down. It's about bending without breaking. It's about responding with wisdom instead of reacting from ego. And that wisdom, that comes from resilience, from falling 7 times and rising 8, from being humbled, not humiliated, from being refined, not destroyed. Resilience is the strength you earn by walking through fire and refusing to come out empty-handed. You don't just survive. You harvest. You learn. You integrate. You grow. Because now you understand. The obstacle was never the enemy. The enemy was the belief that it shouldn't be there. But now, your new philosophy welcomes resistance, because resistance is the birthplace of greatness. And through every fall, every lesson, every failure, you rise. Not with shame, with clarity. And that clarity leads to the most important power of all. The ability to learn faster, to learn deeper, to learn again, even when you thought you already knew. Because the person who can learn, truly learn, is the person who cannot be stopped. They cannot be broken. They cannot be labeled. They cannot be trapped, because every loss becomes leverage. Every weakness becomes a weapon. Every failure becomes fuel. And when you live that way, you're dangerous. Not to others still average, to mediocrity, to victimhood, to the outdated version of you that used to beg for change. Because now you are change. Then take a breath, because we're stepping into the final flame. This is the part they don't teach in schools. The truth they never told you growing up. The truth that makes the difference between a life that inspires and a life that expires unnoticed. Your beliefs are building your life. And every day, you're either reinforcing the old blueprint or drafting something bold, something aligned, something immortal. This is not poetry. This is physics. This is how reality bends. Not to your dreams, but to your dominant philosophy. So if you believe that struggle is personal, you'll resent the grind. But if you believe that struggle is process, you'll worship it. If you believe wealth is for the lucky, you'll reject abundance. But if you believe wealth is an effect of value, vision, and vibration, you'll attract it. If you believe discipline is punishment, you'll avoid it. But if you believe discipline is devotion, you'll fall in love with it. Your philosophy determines how you see the world, and how you see the world determines what's possible for you in it. So rewrite the code. Tear out the belief that says you're too late. Shatter the one that says you need to be perfect to begin. Delete the one that says people like me don't win, and replace it with I am the kind of person who creates victory by who I become. Replace it with I don't chase the outcome, I become the frequency. Replace it with I am not my history. I am not my fear. I am the philosophy I practice daily, and that makes me limitless. Because now you are the sculptor, the engineer, the author. You don't wait for life to hand you permission slips. You hand yourself a blueprint. You decide the rules. You build the values. You raise the standard, and you live it out loud. Because your beliefs are no longer accidental. They're intentional, precise, powerful. And the life that flows from them, it doesn't just inspire others. It awakens them. Because when people meet someone whose philosophy is embodied, not just spoken, not just posted, but lived, they feel it. They feel the weight of conviction. They feel the presence of truth. They feel the silence of someone who no longer argues for their limitations. And that person is you. So write the code, protect the code, and live the code. Because in the end, your philosophy is your religion, your character, your compass, your currency, and your reward, a life you don't need to escape from, a legacy that echoes beyond your name, a mirror that smiles back at you and says, well done, You didn't just think it, you became it. Because that's what this was all about. Not motivation, not hype, not another temporary high, but a total transformation at the level of philosophy. Because now you know your beliefs are building your life. And starting today, they build nothing less than extraordinary. It doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter how connected you are. It doesn't even matter how passionate you are. Because the world doesn't pay for potential, it pays for proof. And proof is built by discipline. The ones with more money than you, they don't always have more talent. They don't always have more education. But they do have more discipline. Discipline to wake up when others sleep. Discipline to say no when everyone else is saying yes. Discipline to delay pleasure for purpose. Discipline to do it again and again and again until mastery shows up at the door. Money's not hiding from you. It's just following the person who refuses to break their routine, who refuses to lower their standard, who refuses to live beneath their calling just because it's comfortable. Discipline is not just a habit, it is the gatekeeper to wealth. It is the difference between temporary success and lasting prosperity. Because anyone can hustle, anyone can sprint, but only the disciplined can build a life that runs on structure instead of chaos. Discipline is the foundation, the non-negotiable, the silent engine that produces loud results. You want to earn more? Get more discipline. Your bank account is just a scoreboard for your current level of self-leadership. Not how hard you work, how consistent you are. Not how much you know, how often you apply what you know. Money doesn't care about your good intentions. It follows execution. It flows to the person who keeps their word when no one's watching, who gets it done without applause, who keeps showing up when motivation dies, and all that's left is commitment. That's who money follows. Not the one who posts the most, not the one who sounds the best, but the one who finishes what they start no matter what. Discipline is the difference between the person who almost made it and the person who made it inevitable. But don't confuse discipline with perfection. You will slip. You will fall. You will break the plan. But the disciplined rise faster. They course correct. They don't negotiate their comeback, they schedule it. Because discipline isn't about flawless execution. It's about faithfulness to the path. It's about honoring your future self more than your current comfort. It's easy to act aligned when it's exciting. But discipline is the decision you make when it's boring, when no one is looking, when every voice inside of you says, just take the day off. And you say, not today. My future matters too much. That's when you shift. That's when you elevate. That's when you begin to live at a frequency the undisciplined cannot comprehend. They don't understand why you pass on parties. They don't understand why you wake up early. They don't understand why you grind in silence. But they'll understand when the check's clear. They'll understand when your peace is unshakable. They'll understand when your lifestyle is funded by discipline, not desperation. Discipline is the currency of freedom. And the more of it you spend, the richer your life becomes. Not just financially, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Because discipline trains you to trust yourself. And a person who trusts themselves is unstoppable. They don't need constant validation. They don't need constant inspiration. They don't live at the mercy of how they feel. Because their identity is tied to their integrity. They don't just do what works. They do what's aligned. And that alignment becomes a magnet for people, for resources, for opportunity, and yes, for money. Because money follows systems. Money follows structure. Money follows the person who stays ready. So let this be your new code. If it costs your discipline, it's too expensive. If it breaks your structure, it's not worth it. If it pulls you out of alignment, it's not part of your wealth plan. You don't need to do more. You need to do what matters longer, better, and deeper. And the only way to do that is to follow your discipline like your future depends on it, because it does. Money is already on the move. It's looking for leadership. It's looking for consistency. It's looking for a home that's been built on routine and reinforced with non-negotiables. So don't chase money. Chase mastery. Chase structure. Chase the version of you who makes discipline look divine. And the money? It will follow. It must follow, because it was designed to serve those who govern themselves well. Because once you anchor your life in discipline, clarity isn't a bonus, it's a byproduct. When you show up with consistency, you start to see what others miss. You spot patterns. You sense timing. You hear the voice of your future louder than the noise of the world. Clarity comes not from thinking more, but from doing with discipline. The more you act in alignment, the less confusion can survive. The more you move with intention, the less distraction can pull you. Because clarity doesn't live in contemplation. It lives in completion, in finishing what you said you'd do, in becoming the kind of person whose word carries weight first with yourself and then with the world. When you have clarity, you stop guessing. You stop dabbling. You stop hoping success will stumble across your path. You start designing it. You build days that serve your dream. You build systems that scale your energy. You build standards that repel everything that dilutes your destiny. And from that clarity comes vision. Not fantasy, not wish lists. Vision. The kind of vision that doesn't wait for approval. The kind that doesn't need applause. The kind that pulls you through fire because you know what's waiting on the other side. When you follow discipline long enough, you no longer wonder what's possible. You see it. You taste it. You walk like it's already done. Vision isn't just about what you want. It's about who you're willing to become to deserve it. It's not about dreaming bigger. It's about operating differently. Because a real vision doesn't just motivate you. It converts you. It burns the old you to the ground so the new you can walk forward. Not fragile, but forged. That's why discipline is non-negotiable. Because without it, vision dies in the fog. But with it, you become a vessel for something so much larger than goals. You become a builder of systems, of legacies, of standards that elevate generations. And then comes the test. Because every vision worth having will demand resilience. Not once, not twice, every single day. The world will try to shake it from you. Distractions will try to drain it. Failure will try to redefine it. But if discipline has trained you to rise without mood, clarity will remind you of where you're going, and vision will not let you quit. You will get knocked down. But resilience doesn't prevent pain, it transcends it. It says, this is temporary. My vision is eternal. My commitment is sacred. My discipline is stronger than this detour. You bounce back. Not because you're stronger than the storm, but because you trained in it. You stop fearing failure. You start respecting it. Because every mistake is now a message. Every loss is a lesson. Every rejection is a refinement. That's the person money follows. The one who didn't flinch. The one who stood tall when everyone else collapsed into convenience. The one who kept planting seeds in drought because they knew the harvest was promised to the prepared. And when that harvest comes, when the results finally catch up with the relentless rhythm of your discipline, it won't feel like a surprise. It'll feel like alignment. Like the world is just now realizing what you've known for years. That discipline is not about restriction. It's about releasing your highest self. It's about unlocking the life that was always yours once you got serious enough to sustain it. Then let's bring it all home. Not quietly, but like thunder. Not with motivation, but with revolution. Not with noise, but with identity. Because now you know. You've seen the pattern. You've felt the rhythm. You've remembered what most people spend their entire life trying to forget. That freedom is never random. And money? Money doesn't answer to desire. It answers to discipline. You don't need luck. You need structure. You don't need hype. You need habits. You don't need more time. You need more focus. The marketplace doesn't reward the person who wants it most. It rewards the person who follows their discipline no matter what. When it's hard, when it's quiet, when no one claps, when it doesn't feel good, when the temptation to slip is louder than the reason you started. That's the test. That's the gate. That's the threshold most never cross. Because it's easier to be motivated once than to be disciplined daily. But only one of those makes you unshakable. Because when discipline is your identity, you don't need willpower, you have ritual. You don't need reminders. You have structure. You don't rely on emotion. You rely on non-negotiables. And suddenly the world bends. People start calling you consistent. They start asking how you stay so focused. They start wondering how you produce results without burning out. It's not magic. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's that you became the kind of person money chases. You build habits so bulletproof, a mindset so mature, an operating system so calibrated that money had no choice. It followed the structure. It followed the consistency. It followed the person who followed their discipline like it was divine law. Because it is. Discipline is divine. It is how humans shape destiny. It is how the invisible becomes visible. It is how the impossible becomes inevitable. And you are no longer waiting to see what happens. You are what's happening. You are no longer chasing money. You are the reason it flows. You are no longer hoping for change. You are living proof of what happens when someone chooses structure over struggle. So let this be your vow, to never again betray the discipline that built your peace, to never again choose comfort over calling, to never again shrink your structure to fit someone else's pace. You've earned this level, not through flare-through, faithfulness, not through genius through grit, not through shortcuts through standards. And now you rise every morning, every hour, every moment, disciplined because you are no longer waiting for the reward. You are the reward. You are the asset. You are the advantage. You are the one who decided to follow your discipline until the world had no choice but to follow you back. So go, live it, be it. Walk like your structure has already paid off. Think like your vision is already funded. Move like your legacy is already echoing through generations you'll never meet. Because money doesn't lead. It follows. And it follows the person who follows their discipline. Without fail, without fear, without compromise. You are that person now. Now build like it. Now lead like it. Now earn like it. Now breathe like it. Breathe like someone who's free, not because the world handed you anything, but because you built the system that no one could take away. Stand like it. Stand with posture, with presence, with power that comes from 1,000 silent wins. Wins no one celebrated but you. Wins stacked in solitude. Wins forged in moments where quitting would have been easier than becoming. Speak like it. Let your words carry the weight of someone who didn't flinch when life got loud. Speak from depth, not noise. From truth, not trends. From experience, not ego. Decide like it. No more hesitation. No more second guessing. No more voting on your future with the fears of your past. You're not here to dabble. You're here to dominate your lane with discipline. Show up like it. In every room, in every space, in every season, with the same hunger, the same standards, the same relentless execution that got you here without shortcuts, without permission, without apology. Because now the world can feel it. You don't chase momentum anymore. You are momentum. You don't hustle for scraps. You build systems that print value. You don't just survive, you scale. This is what happens when discipline becomes your identity, when structure becomes your strategy, when integrity becomes your brand. Everything aligns. Your mind sharpens. Your energy multiplies. Your income rises. Not randomly, not suddenly, but inevitably, because you stopped asking, how long will it take? And started declaring, as long as it takes, I'm here, I'm ready, I'm not leaving. That is who you are now. Not the one who needs the motivation, but the one who creates the standard others measure themselves against. And when they ask you one day, what was the secret? Smile and say what few will ever understand. I followed my discipline until money had no choice but to follow me.